how to raise prices on your clients, or how are you raising your prices for a service? Pretty much the same thing. We're going to go through that. I'm going to give you 5 specific steps. As entrepreneurs and business owners, we know that if we have a clear plan, anything becomes possible. And if you can have a clear plan, a clear process to create that plan, and a way to create clarity with your partner or spouse, you can drive to amazing heights. All right, so I have been self-employed for over 30 years. I've been working with people all over the world, leadership teams, organizations. And raising your prices is critical, particularly if you're a smaller business or a solopreneur, but you're offering some sort of service. And the reality is, most people are resistant to doing this because they fear conflict. Conflict avoidance, I believe, is probably the #1 killer of productivity in the country, especially when it comes to doing and valuing our services. So there is a philosophy that you should always be firing your worst 10% and always growing your top 10%. When you do this, you start to create an evolution and a growth in your in your value and how you're pricing. But the first step and the most important thing when you're doing, when it comes to raising your prices, is to do great work. Be incredibly present when you're working with people. Go over and above and beyond with what they're asking so that you knock their socks off. You want to become their oxygen. You want them to need you for what you're doing. And if they feel like, wow, it costs this much, but it's worth this much, fantastic. So when you do great work, make sure that you're helping them, your clients, understand what is the outcome you're helping provide. Because if they're only focused on how much it costs, that doesn't necessarily work. What does work though is when you help people understand, this is how much we're providing. So I have some clients that pay me through the roof, 6 figures as a consultant and as an advisor for them. And it's like, wow, that's tremendously expensive if you break it down into an hourly basis. But if you look that I help these people in many cases and almost always multiple $1 million decisions, it's a drop in the bucket. It's a rounding error because the benefits they're getting out of it are so much higher. So always be focusing on providing great service and helping them understand what are the outcomes you're helping to drive. That's #1. #2, be curious and listen to where they're at, and sometimes where can you expand your offer. If it may end up being something that's pretty easy for you to do, an extra touch point, being available, some other components, maybe you integrate some AI pieces. But if you can offer additional pieces, maybe it doesn't cost you that much, but the outcome is bigger, you can jump your price quite a bit and say, I'm doing all these other things now, and as a result, I give this. So again, I'm a hawk on price, meaning I am always raising, I'm always pushing, I'm always trying to find that value or that higher level, because it also helps people understand that I'm worth it, I believe that, but I also want them believing it. And right or wrong, price is an indicator of value. So the first thing is doing great work. The second thing is being curious and listening to where you can potentially expand your service for minimal effort or dollars, but then as a result, raise your fee quite a bit. Third, always be looking at how you can be raising your prices and grow. And the strategy, particularly if you're an individual or if you're a smaller group, is say, all right, for this component, when we get from this number of people to this number of people, at that point, then after that, I'm going to raise my price by X. And then when that happens again, then I'm going to raise my price again. And then I'm going to raise my price again. And then I'm going to raise my price again. So for me, if you're looking for like individuals and people that you're working with, it may be, I'm going to work with, if you have a capacity of 20 clients, once I get 5, then I'm going to raise my price. Once I get 5 more, then I'm going to raise my price. Once I get 5 more, then I'm going to raise my price. Now, one of the biggest hindrances in actually raising your price is not the people on the other side. It's you. Because maybe you've got some imposter syndrome. Maybe you're fearful of asking for it. Maybe you're not really sure you're worth it. This is where if you can be providing great outcomes, and even if you go through and list out what are the outcomes you provide, your service, or just in general to your clients, and say, what is that worth to them? Well, you can then start to look at how you can raise your prices. So coming up with some form of a strategy of how and when you're choosing to do that is going to be important. So again, for me, I get to a certain point, and candidly, I'm pretty much maxed out where I want to be with my clients. I'm very, very fortunate. So I'm at the very high end. of what it is for a service, I realize that that's not going to be feasible for some people, but for others, it'll be like, wow, okay, yeah, I'm still willing to do it, and I'm willing to do that. And I know that there's another threshold down the line. All right, so the fourth thing is when you are going to change prices. So if I started working with somebody at this price, and I'm here, and I'm here, and I'm here now, well, I'm not just going to go through and change the price on everybody. That's not cool. But I am going to include it in part of my strategy that says I will maintain this price for at least a year. So they're comfortable, I'm comfortable. But then in the last quarter of that year, if I've had 2 jumps, I'm going to talk to them and I'm going to say, hey, look, currently I was at this, but now I'm that. And I'm going to be raising the rate. And a lot of times I'll meet them halfway. I'll say, this is what people are paying for me now. I realize you came in here. This is what I'm going to raise it to. And I just ask them, is that going to be an issue? Is that going to give you heartburn? And if it does, then we talk about it. I may choose, depending on where they are, how quality the client is, how healthy the engagement is, how much they're actually doing what we're talking about, and I'm helping them. Or maybe they're like, nah, I'm good. We're happy to go for that higher rate. Usually that's going to be the case if you're providing great quality and service. And then the last thing, and this is a small thing, but it's really important, is making sure you do it. I can't tell you how many people are so conflict avoidant. They have that little imposter syndrome barking in the back of their head. And like, I don't want to do this, I'm afraid. So this is having that abundance mindset versus a scarcity mindset. Understanding that it's probably healthy to let go of the bottom 10% all the time and be focusing on creating new, bigger, expanded relationships on the top 10%. So again, 5 steps. Number 1, do great work. Number 2, always be expanding your offer. See how else you can be adding value. Where can you make it to where it's a no-brainer and there's adding those little extra pieces that may not cost a lot but valued a lot, and it makes it easier for them to justify the price. Always be creating some sort of strategy on how and when you're going to be raising your prices. Be direct, let people know in advance what's there, and then have that abundance mindset and pull the trigger. So if you found any value with this, right on. Check out some of the other videos on this channel, subscribe, or you're always welcome to go to aspiringsolopreneur.com and let us know if you have any questions. Keep smiling.